This is King Kurus from the Black History Buff podcast, and before I get into this week's African Proverb, I just want to say thank you to Muleya, Glenda B, Taherra Lawson, Alaina D, AlayA, and Edward Jackson for joining me on Patreon and helping to sponsor the development of the show. I'd also like to say thank you to Globallymobile, steplegs, Streak52312, DeeElHaze, and DeeElHaze for leaving me 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. These reviews really go a long way to helping people find out about the show. And well, if I'm honest, it's just great to get some feedback and know that you're all listening. And that brings me neatly onto the subject of this week's proverb. One of the hardest things about doing my style of podcast is that it's a solo pursuit. From the research to the writing to finding the sound effects, then editing, posting and promoting via social, I, like many other podcasters, do all of this by myself. And this brings me to this week's proverb, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I'm going to be real. I hate this proverb. Why? Because I hate waiting, depending or relying on anyone to do anything for me. Get with the program or get left has always been the motto. But as I've gotten older, gained a family and amassed a number of people who rely on me, I've come to realize that I can't do it all by myself. And that as much as people rely on me, I rely on them too. And what's more, the more I lean on them, the more they give. It's kind of shocking, right? But there's some truth in what I say, because despite what the media might tell us about haters and so on, and they do exist, most ordinary people just want the people around them to do well. So this week, take a minute to look at the team around you. Your friends, your family, your work colleagues, your Twitter followers, your social media tribe, and just ask them if they're prepared to walk with you a little bit further on your journey so that you can go a bit further and achieve more than you did before. I'm going to make the first step. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you can hear my voice, just share this episode. Like, honestly, just whip the phone out right now, tap the share icon, pick a friend, family member, you're on the verge of becoming a friend, co-worker, and just send them this episode. There, I just leaned on you. And I know you'll help me either by doing this or in some other way to gain a few more listeners than I did before. My second step is to now help others go a bit further by supporting them and letting you know about the good work they're doing. This is not a paid ad, by the way, but I'm open to offers. If someone wants to give me some money to advertise their stuff, please hit me up. You can find me in the description. So first up is Ozzy from New Africa Comics. Ozzy is telling black stories via comics, and let me tell you, they are fire. His website is newafricacomics.com, and if you click on the link in the description, you can download a free copy of his new comic, Shango. By the way, I just want to say that Ozzy is going to be a Cambridge graduate soon, so big up Ozzy. Next up is Natalie Ogwara, who is offering to share information about bilingual teaching materials. Again, I shall put the link to her email address in the description box. Personally, I think it's amazing, and if you're a teacher, I'd get in contact before she gets too busy. And lastly, I'd like to shout out Xara, the Cookie Effect podcast, and the I Black Man podcast. These guys are making really great content and pushing out episodes week after week. So please swing by on their socials or find them wherever you listen to your podcast and show them some love. Xara is working on a podcast covering Egyptian musicians, which just sounds amazing. And last but not least, I'd like you to check out NYC Hair Story, who interviewed me for her show. I think it's episode 41 or 42. The title is Digital Cotton Pickers. It's the first time I've been interviewed, and it was hilarious. Actually, I'm going to play a little clip of it at the end of this episode. In my next episode, I'll be covering an amazing inventor and astronomer who shares his name with a very famous clock. If you can guess who it is, DM me on my Twitter account. Oh, and lastly, from this week onwards, I'll be dropping regular audio diary episodes where I'll just be spilling my guts and talking about random stuff that pops into my mind. And those episodes will be going out on my Patreon and on my Podfan account. Again, links are all in the show notes, okay? Right, so that's it for today. Here's a clip from the amazing NYC Butterfly Braids podcast. Enjoy. Oh, and remember, please share, because Black history is world history.
Hey butterflies, welcome back to the channel. It's your girl, AlayA, and you are now tuned into NYC Butterfly Braids Hair Story Podcast. Welcome back. Shout out to all the new butterflies fresh out of the cocoons. I have such a special and amazing treat for you guys today. I got an opportunity to interview the producer of the best podcast in the world. Clap for me. Y'all don't believe me yet, but answer this. I have a question for you. What is better than a podcast about Black history? I'll wait. Nothing is better than that. Like, one thing that this person says, and many wise people say, is that Black history is in fact world history. There's no history without our history. It's that deep and it's that serious and it's that sincere to my heart. So when I'm doing hair, a lot of times I play this podcast for my clients. It's to the point now where I've heard everyone more than enough times. But, every time you hear something that you love, you find something new to enjoy about it. So I suggest that you go check it out. And without further ado, let me reveal. So I got to interview Mr. King Kurus of the Black History Buff podcast. I reached out to him because I started listening to his podcast. I love his voice. Okay? Let me just warn you right now, put on your big drawers because his voice is nice. Okay? Not to take anything away from the content, it just makes for the greatest delivery. You know what I'm saying? Because you thoroughly enjoy it. Being that I'm from the States, NYC, to be specific and precise, and he's from the UK. Well, I think via Jamaica, but he's going to tell you his story better than I could. It's just such a contrast to what I'm familiar with. And it's dope. Really dope. And I want you to check it out. I want you to enjoy it. And I want you to check out his podcast. So I'll be back right after this brief interview so that we can recap. Okay? So stay tuned. Don't get your panties all in a bunch. I'll be right back. Hey butterflies, I got a special guest for you guys today. I'm so excited. I've been stalking the Black History Buff podcast. I have, and the reason why is because to me, I think you have the best podcast out.
Oh, thank you.
I do. I feel like your content is so good. Your storytelling skills are way up. You low key he's so underrated. I think I know you have a lot of people I'm sure that know about you, but this should be an epidemic. This is good listening. So everybody say hi to Mr. King Kurus. I hope I'm not, slamming your name. I hope I did it right.
No, you said it perfectly. Thank you.
Excellent. And I know y'all love the voice there. Yeah. That's an extra bonus as well. But his podcast is so good. I've played it for this is how I know it's good. Because usually I have my own opinion, fine, whatever. But I play it for my clients. And they love it. They're like, this is good.
Wow.
I wish it was longer. Oh, they want more. They're like, this is good. Oh,
wow.
That's
Thank
great.
you. I love your show too. I have, it may seem like a bit of a strange thing for me to check out.
It is so strange.
Right? But my mother runs a salon.
What?
And so she's run a salon since I was a child. So I grew up in black hair salons, right?
Yo, that's crazy.
So I know more about black hair than any straight man should know. From the hot comb on the oven to all the way up, right?
Oh,
and then,
wow.
She handed that salon over to my sister. So,
wow.
I have a little affection for it, and I was looking out for some topics to do with black hair.
Yeah.
And I came across your show, and you just got a really cool voice and a really bouncy way in which you deliver. You're just honest and real. And I don't listen to many podcasts, but yours is fire. Your show's fire. You just keep it 100. It's entertaining, and it's not even like my type of topic, but it's entertaining. I'm just not sure what you're going to say next. I'm just on the edge of my seat every time listening.
Look,
like, what,
you know
what,
how
what,
legit
what?
you are? Because look, you like, yeah, let's send each other questions. I'm like, I'm going to call you right now. I don't got time for that. I'm not writing no questions down. I just like to just talk shit, like, and just be authentic. So, tell me about, there's a whole episode about why you started this. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you that touched my heart, I was like, why you do that to me? Like, why? Bless you. It was so good. I was like, you trying to be the man of the year? Cut it out.
Well, it's a strange thing. Like, I recorded that episode because, like, I realized that people didn't maybe understand why I'm doing it. And for those who haven't listened, like, the reason I started my podcast on Black history is for my son. So my son literally just woke up one day, and it was like he was 3 years old. No, he was 3 years old at the time. And it's like he downloaded the new iOS update, and he just woke up one morning and he was like, I'm black. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, you are. But you could see in his little face, he was trying to figure out what it means. And I just realized at that moment, like, it just hit me like all at once, that at that moment that I hadn't really done anything to contribute towards the black community other than being black.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was it. Like, you know, I'm black, and like that's gonna have to deal with it. That's gonna have to be enough, and it's not. And and I kind of just thought I need to tell him who he is before the world tells him who he is. So I was fortunate. When I was a kid, I got to go to like a Pan-African Saturday school, and I hated it at the time. You know, I hated it. I had to give up every Saturday. Everyone else is out playing. I'm at extra school singing Bob Marley songs, you know, like what the hell is this? But it made me realize that I had all of that instilled in me as a child. So that kind of inoculated me against certain things as I grew up. And I was like, you know what, I need to do the same thing for my son. But rather than start ramming him with information, I just let him see it in the house, you know? I just let him see it in the house. Like, he's only 3. So I decided, like, my background is, weirdly enough, I got into teaching. And that's a story in and of itself that I might tell today. But I thought, like, I need to start teaching him. And then I was like, you can't teach a 3-year-old about slavery. And I was like, why are you going to teach him about slavery? Our history doesn't start there. So teach him different things. And it's like, how are you going to teach a 3-year-old about Egypt? And I was like, don't. Let him see you read it and let him copy you. And that's what happened. So I made sure, like, there was books in the house and one of the first things I did with him is I bought him a massive book of Black history that he couldn't read. You know, he's 3. He can't read this book yet, right? Although he's dipping into words. And I bought him this big book and said, this is your book, ready to read it. And he looked at this book like, you know, I can't read this, Dad. But he had this little determined look in his face like, yeah, I'm going to read this. So that's the first thing I did. And the second thing I did, which comes back to what you do, is I started talking to him about his hair.
That touched me as well.
He's got big, massive, curly hair. And, you know, all the kids around him have straight, flat hair. And when I took him in the garden and spoke to him and said, you know, like, what direction do the trees grow in? And he says, towards up. And, you know, I said, what about the grass? He said, up. I said, what direction do you grow in? He said, up. I said, so which things do things that are alive grow in, son? He said, up. I said, what way does your hair grow? And he said, up. And the penny just dropped. The penny just dropped in him. He was like, wow, my hair's alive. I was like, that's right. Your hair's alive.
Oh my God.
And he just, he won't cut his hair now. Like, we can trim it, but he won't cut his hair. Like, he loves his big, massive, curly afro, and he just lets it grow out. And that for me was like, yeah, you know what? I'm doing this for my son, but it can't just be for me. I got to share this with other people. So I started sharing some stuff on Instagram, and I have an account on Twitter, just Black History Buff again. And I started the podcast, and just over time, just really trying to just share more and share what I'm learning and just spread things so that hopefully parents have things to talk about with their children,
Resources,
other than the struggle. You know,
right.
it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to. It's a heavy burden on an adult, let alone a child, with all the things that's going on in the world, to have to hear about this struggle all the time. Like, I'm 4. I just want to play.
Right.
I don't want to hear about struggle. But
what I do love about your podcast as well, like one of my clients, she pointed this out to me, and she was like, the funny thing is, I think she was like 23, and she's like, I never heard any of these stories.
Well, that's it for another show. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, as each review really helps. And you can support the show by finding me on Patreon at Black History Buff Podcast. And you can contact me via Twitter or via email at podcast@blackhistorybuff.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back again soon.